Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old ankle rat bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Dad Joke Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
This may be the last podcast you ever hear me on.
Let's see, is Reginald available? When would Dan be able to record? Hold
You
on, I got a text Adam.
You should, because if I win that $1 billion, baby, I am fucking out of here.
Joe, I don't know how to
Yes,
break this
yes,
to you.
I know there's a chance. The chance of me teleporting instantly this second to Mars and surviving is greater than me winning. But if it happens, I can't even fathom $1 billion. I mean, I've wrapped my head around if I were to win millions, like what I would do, and the fact I only get half of what it is. I thought maybe we would just start. I know we've talked in the past, or maybe we haven't, about what to do if you did win. But in all seriousness, if you won that type of scratch, what would you do with it? How would you spend it? I'm not interested in the boring shit. Oh, I would pay off my debt. I would pay some Frenchman to set fire to Trump's britches. No, I want to know what type of charities, what type of things would you want to buy?
Well,
Let's just fantasize for a bit.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to break your fantasy, Joe. The MegaMillions is not available here in the Minnesota. It's Powerball here.
No, MegaMillions is available.
Oh, it is.
Your fucking ass out there and buy a goddamn ticket.
Okay, fine.
I want to be a paid employee of Solitaire Rose.
First thing I would do, I actually read a book on this years ago. First thing I would do is go to a lawyer, set up.
Oh no, I don't want to
talk. No.
I want to talk about mechanics.
Everything. Then I would leave for a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and just travel. And who knows? I might be gone for 6 months. I might just get in my car and do what they used to do back in the 50s, where you just drive.
Just drive, she said.
And when I came back, I would have a house with a basement with a gym and a library, and it would be out on one of the lakes here. I actually was at a wedding.
Probably once. A nice theater, too.
Well, I was at a wedding at years and years and years ago that for some reason they let a raccoon in. But it was right on Lake Minnetonka in a house, and it was Valentine's Day. And the entire wall facing the lake was glass. These people had money.
Oh, yeah.
And it was beautiful. And, I would come back to a house like that.
See, that's boring. I mean, everybody's going to do that. No, here's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Fine. I will see how much crack and hookers I can buy with just interest off a month.
That's a given, because, I mean, we all know you'd be dead of crack and hookers, probably, and pie, in about a month. But, no, I'm thinking, I mean, Chris and I were actually talking about this. Like, what kind of things, who would you donate to? See, I got this idea, and the weird thing is I realized my grade school, the Catholic church I grew up in, my high school, and soon the first place I was meaningfully employed are all gone or going out of business. And I'm talking about St. Andrew's Catholic high school and grade school. They basically, actually there was no high school. They closed the church. It's now like a German symposium. They're actually arguing in the neighborhood about whether they're going to tear the building down, because for some reason it's never been put on the historical plate register places. So technically the guys who own it now can tear that sucker down. The high school is kaput. Sears will soon be kaput. What I'm talking is things like, I would give the MCBA boys, who, as you know, have a con coming up next year, which I may or may not talk about, but I'd give them $1 million and say, okay, guys, this is your foundation to start having real guests come in that you have to pay for, because that's something that's fundamentally changing on the con circuit that's leaving the MCBA boys behind. Most guests now want to be paid to come in, especially if you're talking the so-called, and I'm saying this with air quotes, name guests. So I'd be like, yeah, have the $1 million, use the interest to invite the guests in. I'll show up maybe maybe not. Second thing, I'd probably give $1 million to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund for the same reason. Just set up a foundation, do something with it. Just do something. I'd probably go to the political science department for the same reason. Set up a chair, have a guest come in, $1 million. That type of thing. Who would you type to give money from? I mean, obviously the Diabetic Association, rheumatoid arthritis. That's things personalized to me. The other fantasy I would have is I would open up a comic store, load that sumbitch up. I'd come to you, Cory, and say, "What do you need? Tell me your salary figure, full benefits. Set you up. Set it up with Mike Edmondson." I actually talked to Gruber about that. You could see the look on his face, like, would I want to do that? But like you said, open up a comic store. You may see me once a year. You may not. You guys run it. Just have some.
Change your name legally to Wally Carbo.
I'm the Wally Carbo, and just But the key is to and then buy a house, pay my debts off, take care of my kids, take care of my family, blah blah blah.
Oh no, the hell with all them. I just want a kick-ass house that I never have to leave.
I don't even know if I would want that. I mean, I think I'd want 2 houses, one in the south so I could hang in the Keys in the winter, and one in the north, like northern Minnesota. Same thing. And then maybe I don't know. I'd have some guy follow me around with $1,000 or more in cash. So as I wander up and down, I can wander into a store and go, okay, I want to buy this, and this. My guy here will pay for it. Next guy around will deliver it to my home. And of course, the big thing is Cory would have himself a deluxe omnibus library.
Damn straight.
But that's the type of things I'm thinking of. And of course, this here podcast, assuming we decide to continue it, we'd be like on the road. We are going to talk to Stanley for an hour because we're going to him and we're paying him for it with real sound equipment, not things that you hear, every time I move you hear. And we'd probably immortalize Cory's current detached house living in just for posterity's sake.
No, we blow it up.
No. We just keep it bought and just bronze it. I mean, cover that thing with 2 tons of bronze, and just people could come by and leave. I don't know, mint copies of Deathmate on the doorstep or something like that. Just it would be glorious. Glorious. What type of foundation or charities would you want to give money to?
The Hero Initiative.
Oh, that brilliant! And how could I forget them? They are such an awesome group. It's same thing. Here's $1 million. Take care of what's needed.
And if we're talking serious, comic shop would be okay and nice and everything. No, I'd open up a publishing house.
Well, you put it on back of the comic shop. I just want something to take care of my friends.
Publishing house. Somebody's got to deal with the goddamn retailers and the distributors and make sure that things get out and do proofreading.
Oh, yeah, you're the guy to deal with that. You can even deal with me on a phone call. Ironically placed from Sears.
That's why I would not be that person.
Oh, you would hire underlings.
Joe, you get to talk to Diamond. Although my favorite lottery story. Joe, do you remember the, I don't know if you ever saw the Wrestlelicious.
I don't believe I did. I knew of it, but I never saw it.
Just go out to the YouTubes and look up Wrestlelicious. Guy won the lottery, started a women's wrestling promotion.
Oh, my.
And as our friends over at pwinsider.com say, if you ever want to be a thousandaire, start as a millionaire and buy a wrestling promotion.
Yeah. No, I think I kind of like my idea better.
But I would start a publishing concern. I would publish comics and novels. And I would probably do a lot of work with stuff that is out of print and maybe even public domain, but stuff that's out of print, licensing things like IDW does for the artist editions.
So you're kind of like, hey, guess what? We are doing an American flag omnibus, and we're
Yes.
going to play Chicken royally for it.
Yes. And you know, if a billion, 1.6 billion, is that what
Yeah,
it is now?
at least, and nobody wins it, it'll be two. I mean, I can't even think of that.
Who knows? I might just go to Amsterdam and just hang out in Amsterdam for the rest of my life.
Who's that old guy and why doesn't he clean up his pie tins? Oh, that's Strode. We don't talk to him. Don't
Those
look.
those are the cleanest pie tins ever.
Yeah.
I would clean up the red light district.
Clean out the red light district. Clean up. Okay, here's your penicillin shots. No.
Nah.
So,
You clean out the patisseries, which is where.
If next week this here podcast does not land on its normal Monday, you guys know Cory and or I won it big.
I'd keep doing the podcast.
Yeah, but it'd probably be a few breaks while we upgrade our equipment.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go for the 80s tinny? I know I got that. What was
I'd
that?
go for the early WrestleCrap radio where they were both doing it on their cell phones.
Hello? Yes, this is Crazy Ryder calling from again. Guess where I am? Oh, that would be something too. You know, when we talk about the origins of this here podcast, where one of the things is Cory thought he'd have a job where he'd be traveling around, what was it, replacing light bulbs at department stores or places like Walmart. And then I was on the road with the TSA, and of course it'd be like, where in the world are we this week? And we could do that. We could get ourselves a roving van, kind of like a la Shazam show of 1970s, and just roll from state to city and check out all the comic stores and the cons and everything.
Well, there is a website where you can rent what are they called? The big campers.
Oh, hell no. We're going to trip down some bitch and make this our pad, man. You want glass pool? You're going to have one right out the back, man. You can be sitting there in all your glory, people passing by, and I don't even care if you wear shorts.
I can't find it. I got an email about there's a place where you can rent those campers, kind of like it's Airbnb.
Yeah, I've seen them on the road when we were down Florida ways visiting my folks one year. There was actually some people, college kids from Canada, rented one, and they didn't have the full size one. They thought about it, but they're like, "Wow, we wanted to be able to pull into a camp spot at night and not have to spend 20 hours backing the sucker up." It would be glorious. Glorious. So when we're done here, you get up to that Super America and buy yourself a MegaMillions.
I can't.
By the way, nobody won the Powerball either, so buy another one of those.
I can't go to Super America, Joe.
What? Walk. You don't have to go after motorcyclists.
I can't even walk to Super America.
Now what did you do?
You didn't hear, did you?
No, because you don't post things.
Super America has all the ones in Minnesota have now changed to Speedway.
No wonder I haven't been able to find them. I've went past them constantly. I thought, where's Super America? Fine, I'm a holiday man myself.
But here's the thing: before I moved here, I guess Super America bought up all the 7-Elevens.
Yeah, I can't even get a decent Slurpee these days.
And now Speedway has bought up all the Super Americas. I did not know that Super America started in the Twin Cities.
Holiday was a Minnesota store too.
But I guess the first Super America, which was a gas station / convenience store, opened up in 1960. I think it was St. Paul. But they were bought up by Marathon Oil,
yep,
who owned Speedway. And Speedway last weekend changed them all.
There go all my points again. Damn it.
No, you can you get the Speedway card, and you can transfer all your points to your Speedway card and get 1,000 more.
Ooh, now I have a reason to stop. Well, maybe Tuesday night in case I don't win the Mega Millions.
Yeah, then you can, start saving up for that free Dr. Pepper.
Because what was cool is some of the Super Americas, the ones that didn't have gas stations, they actually ended up selling those off. And I don't know if like they were changed because suddenly a few of them that they were 7-Elevens and then they became Super Americas and then they became Super USA.
Yes.
So they're kind of convenience stores, but some of them don't have the gas.
And whenever I see that, it's like, oh, that's the generic version of Super America.
Yeah.
But nope, even when I grew up, we didn't have 7-Eleven in Central Illinois. We had Convenience. That was actually the name of the chain. And you'd see all these ads in the Marvel comics for stuff that you could get at Super America.
And you couldn't.
Not Super America, 7-Eleven. The superhero cups.
Yep.
The special comic packs, all sorts of stuff. But nope, we couldn't get it.
Yeah, I think the last thing I bought when I was hanging in Washington D.C. was a Hulk. And I cannot remember the date of it, but it was bagged and boarded. It was a special variant cover. Came out about the same time the movie did. And it was only available at 7-Eleven. They had 5 of them left. Only 2 of them were in mint shape. And I think when I got them, I ended up selling one to Gruber, and I think the other one I ended up selling on the eBays eventually. Good times.
I've been looking through some of the old stuff that we've been talking about in the past. And there's something that's always caught my attention. Always it sort of grabbed my curiosity.
Oh, is it that little noise we make when your lips are dry and you before you talk? I've seen that on newscasters too, so it's not just a podcast phenomena.
No, it was the actual letter that Jim Shooter sent the legal department in 1984 about the offer that Time Warner came to Marvel with. Do you remember what I'm talking about there, Joe?
You were talking about that a couple weeks ago, where the DC was sucking cheese on the comic department. They wanted to. Somebody in Warner was thinking about leasing their characters to Marvel, or I don't know, leasing or outright buying.
They would license them to Marvel for Marvel to produce the comic books. And Marvel got fairly far with it until the legal department said, well, we're already being sued by this company called First for being a monopoly. If we were to have all the DC stuff as well, and they just, their projections were that they would have between 60 and 70% of the direct market. And they said that might make us lose the lawsuit.
So the question is how did the lawsuit go for First? Oh, never mind. They're out of business.
Yeah, they did not win.
That was some good thinking there, First.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. That was the entire reason First was created.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was a lawyer and some other people got together and they said, look, Marvel's got a monopoly. We can sue them and get a bunch of money. So they started a comic book company and they hired some people from the Chicago area and a couple former DC people to start it up. And I think they were fairly successful in the 80s, but by the end of the 80s they started running out of steam. And I remember I was working at Schindler's when First announced that they were no longer going to do monthly books, they were just going to do prestige format books. And that lasted, I don't know, about a year or so, and then they were gone. They do still kind of exist. They are partners with Devil's Due, so there are still books that are called First Comics. And the lawyers involved in the original First Comics are involved, but none of the creators and none of the editorial, nobody from the original First Comics is involved.
I just jumped on the Wikipedias to look at some of the books, because I do remember buying First Comics, and some of them we've talked about. American Flag, Badger. They did Michael Moorcock adaptations. I do remember the Classic Illustrated, because I actually had some of those while I still had Hot Comics.
Those were so good.
Oh, they were. I might still have. Actually, I think I sold it. They did their own version of a crossover called Crossroads.
Yes.
Where all the different characters essentially crossed over. I still have Dreadstar which was Jim
Jim
Starlin.
Starlin, and then he handed it over to Angel Medina and Peter David.
Just looking, E-Man, my first exposure to E-Man. Grimjack, which I have a collection of, which I've never read. I'm looking forward to. John Sable was John Sable freelance.
So much.
Absolutely. Lone Wolf and Cub was originally published in full size. And again, when I had Hot Comics, anytime I saw these comics discounted, I'd bring them in, sell them for cover price. Moondin's Bar, which I think was a spin-off of Grimjack, wasn't it?
Yes, the premise of Munden's Bar was so cool. It was a bar that was multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
So you could have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come in, Cerebus could come in, Grimjack could come in.
You actually had Omaha the Cat Dancer visit.
Yes, the city they were in was a part of all universes.
And of course, I believe the bar was actually owned by Grimjack, but he didn't really show up that much.
Right.
And when he did, you just let him be and drink.
Yes.
Kind of like Cory when he wins that $1 billion. He's just going to sit in the corner and eat pie and drink.
No, I'm going to have a turret, and anybody who comes close to the house.
Yeah, I suppose with $1 billion, you could afford to buy one. There's always military surplus around somewhere.
Who knows? Maybe I could get one of those Goldfinger lasers.
So, but you're saying first was made just to sue Marvel?
Yeah.
Wow. Good thinking there, people.
Hey, the company lasted for over a decade, and just think if they would have won.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was a silly lawsuit because all Marvel would really have to do is, okay, yeah, we've got this large percentage in the direct market, but we sell magazines. We're nowhere near a monopoly in magazines. So, because in Illinois, which is where First was located, comics were just considered magazines. And as magazines, you didn't have to pay sales tax on them. Gears are turning in Joe's head as he's trying to figure out how to go to Illinois to buy all his comics.
Yeah.
But I have thought for years and years and years what would have happened, kind of playing what if with that idea, because what Shooter did is he kind of got together with some people at Marvel and had them work out ideas, and when the lawyers nixed it, a lot of those ideas actually went over to DC or got changed up, such as Steve Gerber's Hawkman idea. Gerber took it over to DC. DC rejected it. He reworked it and made it the comic Void Indigo.
And we know how good that went.
Well, I bet you didn't know that Void Indigo was a failed Hawkman proposal.
Well, it was also just failed to begin with.
Oh, it was so
Which
good,
is
though.
really too bad, because I was looking forward to the fact that he did say it was in the Marvel Universe. And,
well, no, it was at Epic.
Yeah, it was, but Gerber said I thought it was in the Marvel Universe, because I was waiting for the alleged Man-Thing team-up. That would be the first show-up. Although whether... again, it did a graphic novel and then 2 issues of the series, and I forget why the heck did it get canceled, because it had sex in it or something?
It got canceled because it got stopped at the border in Canada, and Canada declared it too violent.
Oh, too violent. Jeez.
Too violent. So
brilliant.
It could not be sold in Canada, and because of that, it wouldn't make enough money in order to continue. And actually, the same thing happened when Steve Gerber did the Nightmare on Elm Street magazine that Marvel only published 2 issues of.
I'm just looking again on the wiki, and they said that issues 3 to 6 were never completed, although the synopsis was leaked onto the interwebs. And I to tell you the truth,
leaked, it was on Steve Gerber's website.
Oh, they have to say leaked probably, but and being it's been so long since I've read any of them, I don't even know if I'd remember it.
The Superman pitch was from John Byrne, who then used it to make Man of Steel. The Batman pitch was Frank Miller, which he used his to become Batman Year One. But I was wondering, let's say, Joe, you are in charge of Marvel. It's 1984. The deal is struck, and they tell you, all right, in 1984, at the end of 1985, DC's 50th year, they will end publication, and Marvel will begin publication of DC Comics in January of 1986.
When did
How
Crisis
would you
come out?
do it?
When did Crisis come out?
1985, because it was part of the 50th
Okay.
anniversary.
So what I would have done, and I would have said, okay, at the end of Crisis, everything's canceled. And I know you would have had a shit fit because the way DC worked is everybody had their own little fiefdom. And we've talked in the past about that, which is why it was basically like pulling teeth trying to get anybody involved in Crisis. And it was almost too late for some of them because when Crisis became the hit it was, then people were like, oh, yeah, I'll be involved. So I'll put red skies on everything. So the book tied into Crisis, but it had nothing to do with Crisis, hence the whole red skies phenomena. And they got away with that because, again, they were their own little fiefdom. You couldn't tell Schwartz, who I think was doing Superman, how he was going to put Superman into Crisis. You couldn't tell him how, whoever the Batman editor was, whoever the Hawkman editor was, or whatever, how they were going to do it, or if they were going to do it. Because a lot of them didn't want to do it. They were just old school farts who just had zero imagination. You know,
It wasn't just old folk, though, Joe.
I would say it would, because a lot of these guys, again, maybe not old, but they had no imagination. To me, and again, this is just as a fanboy, not knowing anything going on behind the scenes, I always kept wondering, why the hell didn't you just stop everything at one? You know, everything stops, start over with one. Maybe with Detective and Action, keep their numbering going just because it was cool to have a high, back then, having a high numbered comic wasn't a big deal. So you were actually proud to have that. Now it's kind of like, no one's going to collect 1,000 issue. Sorry, Bendis. But so yeah, for me, I was like, okay, fine. And then they announced things like, okay, John Byrne's Man of Steel's coming up. It's like, well, how does that tie in with Crisis? No, it doesn't. They're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so again, I would have, at the end of Crisis, everything's done. I'll give you guys maybe one issue to wrap everything up because guess what? Marvel's doing it. And we have kind of an idea how that would fall technically because we saw that with Heroes Reborn. Everything ended, and then next month the Image Boys were doing it.
We also saw it with the New 52.
Well, that was more in-house.
Yeah, but everything ended.
And boy, it was a brilliant idea too. I mean, granted, it's kind of faded after 5-6 months, but boy, we were excited as hell to see these number ones come out.
Well, one thing I'm going to push back on, you said it was all the old fiefdom and everything. It was also a lot of creators who didn't like the idea of starting everything over.
Yeah,
the
old
biggest
fart.
example.
Square thinking.
Square thinking, yes. The biggest example I can think of is Mike W. Barr, who was doing Batman and the Outsiders. And he just ignored it. He said, I don't care. I'm not restarting. I'm not doing this. I don't care. I treat continuity as if I need it for a story, I use it. But if I don't, I don't. And there were other people who treated it the same way. I'm not going to throw any bone, Tony Isabella, on Hawkman. They just ignored it.
Well, how would they ignore it? Guess what? You're not publishing after 12 months.
Right, but
you got 12 months to wrap it up.
Why they didn't start over with number ones. Tony Isabella refused to even acknowledge Crisis on Hawkman, and they continued Hawkman for about a year or so after, which is why Hawkman is so fucked up.
That's the difference between what we've talked about more Marvel. Hey, Shooter's the boss. Yeah. You're going to put Secret Wars in. You're shoehorning Secret Wars 2 in. There is no. So right. Again, that's just the way it worked. And we've talked in the past about, how Time Warner was set up. And yeah, that was pretty much it. You had your own little fiefdom. And as long as you produced the cash, you were probably left alone. Closer to what probably Marvel was in the 70s, where nobody really was in charge holding the reins. So
right.
Everybody can do whatever they want.
But I agree. I think Crisis, Crisis ended with the multiverse being destroyed and one universe. I would, if I were working with, if I were the head of editorial at Marvel, I would have said, all right, end of Crisis is actually when everything ends. End it with the universe being destroyed.
And then, right in the middle of Secret Wars, because Secret Wars was going on, guess
Secret
who
Wars
happens?
2 was going on.
Well, guess who happens to come popping over into the Marvel Universe? Who destroyed the DC Universe?
The Anti-Monitor.
This isn't even worth a dime. I mean, yeah. All of a sudden, he comes knocking on the door. Well, who could they want to make the vanguard to say, hey, we got some problems here? I would make it the Beyonder. The way Shooter envisioned him, the blonde Palomino hussy had a smoldering good looks.
The guy with
Steve Rogers with the fro and
with Michael Jackson's fashion sense.
Because you think of it, he shows up and he's trying to explain to these people who's he already scared the shit out of in Secret Wars that there's somebody worse than me coming along. And if you want to have some more fun, hey, Darkseid's there. I'm pretty sure he would have figured a way to get away from the Anti-Monitor. I mean, he kept most of Apocalypse shielded. So, but even now, we got
Joe,
the sandbox. We're starting to mix the sandbox up a little.
I'm going to stop you for a second because something just got announced on WWE we may want to discuss.
Uh-oh.
Roman Reigns announced that 11 years ago he was diagnosed with leukemia. It has come back, and he has relinquished the title. Because with leukemia, let's see, he was diagnosed with the disease when he was 22, and after 11 years of being in remission, the disease has returned. There were rumors that he was dealing with an injury. He was working out. He was slated to defend the Universal title, but instead Reigns has asked for the weekend off, and now we know why. He did not intend his announcement to be a retirement speech, but he will have to take time off to deal with the disease.
Wow. Anytime we hear stuff like this, the first place we go is pwinsider.com because they don't bullshit.
This was announced at the beginning of Raw.
Which is going on as we record this. So
yes, I'm not one of those people who's always been booing Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns is very charismatic. The stuff he does outside the ring, he's no John Cena where he's spending all his time doing charitable stuff, but he does a lot of charitable stuff. He does a lot of stuff for children, and I thought that he was. I think that he'd earned the championship by his work, and wow, that's
real life slapping you in the face.
Yeah, that's and it's a lot like after Daniel Bryan won the title, and he had to retire because of the concussions he'd taken over the years, and we found out later that he was hiding from the WWE, that he was having seizures, he was passing out. But I had not heard anything about him having leukemia years ago. This is a really big blow. It's a really big blow for wrestling because he was kind of the new John Cena. For both good and bad, some people just didn't like him because he was the new John Cena. But he was the charismatic guy who could do the interviews and show up on the talk shows and still put together a hell of a good match. Wow. Whew, going to be a little hard to get back on track after that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, we get that in comics, unfortunately, when a creator passes away or, the story of Bill Mantlo is still hard on the heart. And
and especially since he had stepped away from comics, he'd worked all those extra books and put himself through law school while he was writing comics. And he knew that after Shooter was gone, he probably wouldn't have as much work, and he didn't. And he went over to DC and he did Invasion, and I think that's the only thing he did at DC. But he had completely left comics, was doing legal work, and I think it was, legal work for the poor. He wasn't in it to get rich. And he was rollerblading and got hit by a car. And a lot of people don't quite understand what happened. He had traumatic brain injury, which, while you can get therapy to do better, you don't ever become yourself again.
Listen to the Strode. He works with people like this.
Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about.
He's in a group home a lot like the ones I work in. So when you see the pictures of him, when I look at him, it's very much like I would work with that guy. That's the kind of guy I would work with. And the other thing about traumatic brain injury is you don't control your emotions anymore. So his brother would talk about there would be times in his previous facility before he started getting all the money from Rocket Raccoon and Guardians of the Galaxy from Marvel that he would be uncontrollable and they wouldn't know what to do with him. And now they have a facility that's set up for that. Or Darwin Cook. None of us fans knew that Darwin Cook was ill when he passed away. Mike Wieringo, there's a Ringo Award. Mike Wieringo passed away from cancer very young. You don't hear a lot in wrestling because these guys are, they get tons of medical tests, and especially in the WWE, you have to go through a wellness program. One of the wrestlers from Ring of Honor that they hired, and for the life of me, I can't think of his name right now, but they found out that he had a chronic medical condition, and he couldn't wrestle anymore. He's now an announcer, so let me get that name so I don't sound like an idiot.
While Corey's looking that up, I think of, a couple of weeks ago, I found a autograph book with Mike Turner. I mean, when he passed away, that was a shock because he was so young. And I remember getting annoyed at fans when Kurt Busiek was out sick with a life-threatening injury. And people are like, well, how come we're not getting any more Astro City? Shut up! You may not get any Astro City if he doesn't pull through. And thank the gods he did.
Nigel McGuinness, who was a huge star in Ring of Honor, he finally got called up to WWE. They put him through the wellness program, and they found out he had an undisclosed illness that he didn't even know about. And it ended his career. Thankfully, they hired him to do announcing. But Corey Graves, another WWE guy, he was becoming big in NXT, had a career-ending injury. In his 20s. Paige in WWE. She grew up in a wrestling family. There's going to be a movie next year about her family. 25. Injuries ended her career. In comics, one of the things that we're dealing with in comics now is a lot of the Silver and Bronze Age creators are hitting their 60s and 70s and passing away. I think, Joe, you and I talked about that the only person left from the real early days of Marvel are Joe Sinnott and Stan Lee, and they're both in their 90s. From EC, only Angelo Torres is left. So I'm one of those people who, when you go to a convention, and Joe's seen me do it, I don't go up and ask for a sketch I thank people for what they did. I think one of my favorite moments in all my fandom of comics was the first time Pat Broderick was at one of the one-day shows, and I had my giant size, my Man-Thing Essential, and I took it over to get signed, and he said, "Oh, I didn't do Man-Thing," and I flipped, and I said, "Yeah, you did, right there." He's like, "Oh my God, I forgot I did that."
That's funny.
And he was looking at it going, wow, I was so young. This is so early. and he had no memory of it at all. So
All right. Well, this was
let's.
going to be something I was going to ask you in a future show.
Okay.
And this is something that's on my mind because, as you know, I got my hip coming in 4 weeks. And no matter what happens, no matter how many surgeries there are, there's always the possibility something could go wrong.
Yep.
With that in mind, to bring it back to comics, what do you plan to do with your comics when you're gone?
I have already talked to my son and kind of shown him what needs to be done, and I put in my will how to get rid of them, but also
Excellent. To
that
have it in
the
the will is big.
yes, but also the EC collection is not to be sold. If he doesn't want it, it goes to another relative. It's to be handed down.
Oh, cool.
Because the ECs are, that's the one thing that I'm proudest of, that I have all of the EC, the box set hardcovers. Because that was in 1979 when I got that Overstreet price guide that was about EC. They had the ad, and it's like, oh, I want those. And it's like Tales from the Crypt is $125, and that's when comics were 45 or 50 cents. So $125, especially to me as a freshman in high school, when I'm scraping to get a 50 cents for a comic, that's like, oh my God, it's too. I'll never have that much money.
I know that feeling because when I graduated high school, I took $150 of my own money and bought an X-Men #1. And so I know that I was like, I got a lot of money. It was that or a Barks lithograph. And judging by the way it went up in price, I should have bought the Barks lithograph, but I did okay with it. See, for me, my girls, the comics are the girls. They can wade through them with what they want. I told Chris, if you really don't know what to do with them, give Pat a call, my old partner Pat, and he will go through and he'll tell you what's worth something, what isn't. I said donate it to the charity booth, have a one big blowout sale. But the thing is, you have it in your will. You've talked to your son. I've talked to my wife, a little bit to my daughters. So yeah, plan for something. Because, we talked a lot about when Nick passed away, and nobody knew where his collection of the most incredible comics I've ever seen, and I've only seen bits of it, and I remember pieces I've sold to him. Nobody knew where they were. The con benefited because the Postiglione family donated his Comic Con stock to the convention. And even the con guys were surprised, like, what are we going to do with this stuff? And we used a lot of it at the charity store. So, again, plan ahead. I think we've covered everything with comics. What to do in a disaster, how to keep them safe, what to do with them when you're gone. So if you don't know, it's because you ain't been listening to our Here podcast.
And we're in open enrollment at my office job, and there are so many people who call in, in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They've bought life insurance through the company, but they don't have anybody listed as their beneficiary. Well, guess what, kids? You don't list somebody as your beneficiary. The state decides who gets your money. And yes, there's a legal framework. First your spouse, then your kids, then your parents, then your siblings, and on down the line. But if it gets to a certain point, it goes to the state.
Yeah. There's been a lot of that. If you don't believe it, they'll fight it out. Just go take a look at what's going on with Prince's estate.
And also there's what they call the Millennium Book Series, the books by Stieg Larsson, the girl with the dragon tattoo, the girl who kicked the hornet's nest. He was working on a 4th book. And he lived with his longtime girlfriend. They didn't get married. Oh, I don't believe in marriage. And he was mostly done with that 4th book. He passed away. Not married. Family has the rights to those books. She refuses to give up the 4th book because why should she? She's been completely cut out because there was no will. Family went and they've hired somebody and he's writing new books. We're never going to get the 4th book that Stieg Larsson was mostly done with. I guess they just need to edit it. The family has all control over everything. You need to think about this stuff, not just with your comics, but overall. And as a fan, take the time to send someone a thank you. There's a comic I will talk about in Geeking that came out, and I'm friends on Facebook with the artist, Sean McCrae. I just got done reading the book, went to his Facebook page. You can't post anything other than, but he said, "Oh, I'm going to be doing a signing for this, the new book." I was like, "I just read the first issue. Not only did I love it, but this was some of your best storytelling in ages." Boom, 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 boom. Just thank the people who are doing these comics for you, man. Just thank them. Most of the time, artists, if you read a lot of artists on Facebook, it's, I'm sitting at the drawing table with a movie on while I'm doing my inking, or I'm doing layouts while listening to podcasts. When they go to a convention, they're there to meet people and sell stuff, and it's a business. But also just thank them, because nobody's here forever. And the fact that Roman Reigns is probably, he's saying it's not a retirement, but he's probably done. You will probably not see another Roman Reigns match. Steve Austin. You're never going to see Steve Austin in a wrestling ring ever again. He can't take a bump. If he takes a bump, he could break his neck. Same with Edge. Same with a bunch of people. God, I don't want it to get all morbid, but, when somebody 33 at the height of his business has to step away because of illness, you got to think about it. All right, this one isn't going to be fun to write up, Joe.
Nope.
But we could talk about this subject next time. The what we would do with Marvel and DC, because we've gone almost an hour. And you know what we do after we've gone almost an hour?
I can go to the bathroom finally.
Yes, because we let me tell you about these guys, our sponsors.
The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network has ads, and our ads are, first, for the best web host in the whole known universe, go to dreamhost.com. Dreamhost.com is the best bar-none web host in the whole known universe, and we have been using it since 1999, so we're old. But also, if you need a web host, just head on over and use the code KRAYZ and get $20 off your first year. And when you're at work or you're at home, do you really want to eat those unhealthy snacks? Another bag of chips from the vending machine? No, you want to go over to Graze.com and get healthy snacks sent to you automatically with a subscription, or you can order whatever snacks you like. Just go to Graze.com. Your first and fifth box are free if you use the code CORYS3R5P. That's CORYS3R5P. Free snacks, healthy snacks, and the best way to keep away from the vending machine. If you would like to advertise on Crazy Comics and Stories or any of the other podcasts, you can just send an email to solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Thanks.
That was the worst segue. We got to smooth that out sometime.
I don't know. You were in the toilet. What do you know?
Yeah, what do I know?
I've been in your toilet. There's not much room there.
You need to clean it sometime.
I have.
Yeah, that's why Chris doesn't like you. Yeah.
There are a lot of reasons why Chris doesn't like me.
Because you
That's
don't share.
just one of them.
You don't share pie with her.
And I'm cruel.
And she doesn't like pie. She actually, wine or coffee would get her going.
No. She a cake person?
Not as much.
I know Butch is a meatloaf person.
Yes.
Next time I see Butch, I am bringing him a meatloaf.
That's good. I don't think he listens to the podcast either.
Well, I haven't heard from Butch since Free Comic Book Day, so
That's okay.
I must have cleaned something for him.
Maybe if you went over to our Facebook page, you'll see a picture of you, me, and Butch together.
Oh, that's right.
You'd
It's
think
me
I'd
at the
let you go.
convention.
Yeah. And you said you wouldn't go.
Yeah.
It took a while to find you, though.
Well, I'm not easy to find. I hide.
That is true.
Butch has said if I ever get down, if I actually lose weight and get in shape to where I want to be, I should dress up as the Warren Ellis Moon Knight. The all white suit, the white mask.
And you won't even wear a suit. You're pretty white already.
Well, not everything is about these shenanigans on this podcast. We have other podcasts, Joe. Did you know that?
Other shenanigans.
There are other shenanigans, and you can hear me talk about them right here. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about. Every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. And if you think that I'm on all of these podcasts, you're wrong, because Scrabbling Across the West is at scrabbling.solitairerose.com, where musician Dave Cofell and his wife Stephanie travel across America and then sitting down to play Scrabble and talk about the day. That's at Scrabbling Across the West, scrabbling.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha. And after we've discussed the topic of the episode, which got derailed, the ads, which
enough, I didn't do it this time.
I know, and the other podcasts we do. Now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where he goes into a long history of why Nick Fury shouldn't be the Watcher. It's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
He should really, but yeah, no, just a few new things up, but not a lot. I'll probably be, like I said, I'm trying to decide with upcoming hip operation, because right now the problem is where I'm sitting and where I actually put things on eBay, the actual stock and the packing area is downstairs. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to maneuver the stairs too well, at least not till I get my hip up and running. So I actually concocted an idea, much to my wife's she's not impressed with it, but I thought, I could bring, with all the stuff I have on eBay, it's all comic books, and I've got about 700-800 books on, and they don't take up a lot of space, comparatively so. I mean, they're probably in about 6 to 7 short boxes. So I could bring those upstairs, I could bring the boxes and packing tape up, and that way I could still do the eBays even though I'm recovering. Or I could just, like last time I didn't do the eBays, I shut it down, and then it just took a while to get going again, because eBay used to have this thing where I could go on vacation and you could see my stuff, but you couldn't buy it. Well, they've since taken that option away, so you could still buy it, but then they say you may not get it for a week or two because I'm on vacation. But then I come back from vacation and I get all these negative strikes against me from eBay saying you didn't ship this stuff in a timely manner. Well, I was on vacation. Well, last time I put my store on vacation and said not to hide it, they basically dumped my entire store. You don't know what fun is until you try to relist 700 items at once. I'm kind of
That
amused today
sounds like
because
so much fun, Joe.
well, and I'm kind of I'm waxing ironic today because eBay has sued Amazon for poaching their, and again, there are the air quotes again, sellers. And I guess there may be something to it because they're kind of using like their own, eBay's own mail service or something to do it. I don't know how. But I keep finding it, and I'm like, eBay, you're making it tougher and tougher for, the guys who make you the money, the sellers, to work on your platform because no matter what happens, you're always penalizing them. Case in point, Cory, let's see if Cory knows. As of this podcast, what was the last national holiday that we had? I accept one of two answers.
The last national holiday where you got a day off was Labor Day.
No, it would have been Columbus Day.
I didn't get that day off.
Well, not everybody does, but it's a national holiday. Or Indigenous Person Day, or personnel, or whatever they call it. The post office was closed. So basically what happens is when I have weekend sales, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I have to have them mailed on Monday. So I got everything ready on Monday, and then I went to the post office like, oh, they're closed. Well, eBay noticed, oh, you didn't mail them on the 8th of October. You mailed them on the 9th. That's 2 strikes against you. And I'm like, really? Your frickin' system is the one who told me to mail it on the 8th. Didn't you realize the post offices are closed? So, again, they sit there and they bitch, oh, our sellers are going to Amazon. Well, the only thing that's got me going is that comics are still sold faster and better on the eBays. Everything else is going Amazon. And again, eBay, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. See Sears. See Toys R Us. Considering what your sales were when you first started playing footsie with Amazon, this smacks of almost First Comics proportion. Another interesting thing that happened, and we'll step a little bit into the world of politics. Cory, did you see which international treaty, non-nuclear, did Trump decide that we're no longer going to be part of?
Yes, it's the mail treaty, which actually will affect me in a couple of ways because I have friends overseas that I send letters to.
And it was interesting because I never understood why. I'm looking right now, I've got this little 1-inch transformer figure of Hot Rod that I bought for an astonishing $3 with no other shipping. And folks, I can't send anything to China that cheap. I can't even send things across town that cheap. I sent a friend of mine, it was his wedding, again, the one I bitched about that I couldn't go to. And the one I was trying to get, the Infinity Gauntlet graphic novel. Well, I got it. I got a gift card. I mailed it out. Mailed everything last Monday. Stuff in California and the East Coast got delivered on Wednesday. He didn't get his package till Saturday. I could have driven over there in less time it takes for you to listen to this podcast. And again, I don't get it. But I always wondered, my daughters are constantly getting small packages from China, jewelry, little bits of makeup. I've gotten computer things. Certainly DVDs are cheaper. You go Google anything. And, it's good and bad. There's a story about a guy who locally manufactured ball bearings and eventually had to quit because when you mailed things, I forget what they call it, was it email or something, E-Trade or something, some type of E-Tract, I don't know. You could fit up to 4.4 pounds in this package and ship it for whatever cheap rate that China was able to get. Because all of a sudden he realized my ball bearing sales have stopped. What's going on? And he realized everybody's going to China. Not only, they can get them cheaper, but they're not technically paying shipping. And with him, 4 pounds is a lot. Go look at your postal scale and figure out how much it costs to mail 4 pounds. So for people that sell similar items, it'll help because now the leveling, the field will be level. For those of you who really dig these cheap stuff coming in from China, it's going to disappear. And like what Cory said, if you're going to be mailing stuff to China or back, it's going to be gone. Kind of a mixed bag on this one. I usually bitch and moan about various political things, but in this case, I can see both sides of the equation. So it'll be interesting to see on the eBays what happens, because if you're interested in buying something cheap, I don't know when this particular thing takes effect, but you definitely want to get in there and be ordering your cheap shit now. In the meantime, you can go look at my stuff, reasonably priced things.
Yes.
Some of it's got free shipping, some of it doesn't, and of course, I want it all taken care of, hopefully by the time I get my hip on November 29th. So as you are esteemed listeners of this show, just send me a quick note. Somebody did earlier, and matter of fact, I only sold a couple things on eBay, which is why I was ranting so long about non-selling things. But a couple things did sell. I sold Annihilation Conquest, number 1 through 6, plus the prologue. I had it originally priced at $80. Somebody offered me $50. Sold. Another one we've talked in the past about, Glamour Puss. That was the post-Cerebus. I'm not quite sure what Dave Sim was doing with this one, but he had an exclusive fashion industry preview edition, 99% of which probably all ended up in the trash. So if you actually see one of these, he did actually sell a few to various shops and things like that, and they were all autographed. Well, he had sent one to Dreamhaven, the rare Dreamhaven Comics edition, number 1 of 1, and I ended up selling mine on the eBays because Glamour Puss is not one of those that I will probably hang on to. Did they ever do a book on this?
No.
Phone book on? Yeah, see, if he did, I might pick it up, because for some of the history he covered in comics, it was fun, but the most of it was kind of like, yeah, Dave, your art's nice, but I'm not quite sure where you were going with it. And I think he only went 25 issues anyway.
Yeah, he was learning a new art style. He was trying to learn an illustrative art style, and that's why he was doing the stuff about Alex Raymond in the back, because as he was learning that new art style, he began to study the life of Alex Raymond and how his death was very odd. And he keeps saying he's going to go back and finish that story about the strange death of Alex Raymond, but I keep hearing that he can't draw. So I'm wondering if this is going to be another one of those things that doesn't get finished and just kind of goes away.
Yeah. Kind of like the Mighty Mangor.
Yeah.
Malibu. Mark Avanier, Sergio Argoni is just a guy. Superhero talked nothing but superhero quotes from other magazines. I sold my set. I enjoyed it, but not something I'm going to keep. Plus, I think the graphic novel's out there. And the last thing I sold was Aquaman number 12, Robot Chicken Photo Variant Cover. This was the first one that came out, and oh, how it is fallen. And when it first came out, it was $29. Guess, Corey, how much I sold mine for? And if you go about 10%, you're probably close.
I was going to say $2.9.
Pretty close, $2.75. So, in the meantime, all sorts of other good stuff up on the eBays. Check it out. Go back to listen to the where Corey graciously gives me a link on his web page. If people even use web pages anymore, or just go to eBay, look for Crazy Krayz. Tell them Kray sent you. They won't be impressed, but you tell them that anyways.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Fire drill. Oh.
No, not where I order a pizza.
Ooh.
I love pizza.
Probably have pineapple on it.
No.
Okay. I can't complain. I had White Castle, so I'm burping up onions. I'm with you, man.
Of course, I'm not one of those people who says that pineapple should never be on pizza, because pineapple is a sweetness that goes very well if you have like ham or bacon. The sweetness and the tartness of the pineapple actually cuts the salty smokiness of the bacon.
Or some idiot who says, the best way to check out a place's pizza is just order a cheese pizza. Or someone who bitches about Italian fries. Nope, we're not none of that.
I'm just going to let those right on by, because I get yelled at enough on the internet, Joe.
Yeah, why not?
No.
Nobody yells at me.
Oh, bullshit.
They don't. Nobody. I'm. You may be the national treasure, but I'm like a national rock.
So people don't know that you're the one who started all the cleaner jokes.
Nope.
I take the blame for your shit, as always.
Why not? I know. And that's the thing. I can't even tell. I know about a couple guys who are friends with me on Facebook because of the show, but I'm pretty sure most of our listeners, I'm not friends with. So I would be. I'm a friendly guy. And you'd think after all this time I'd run out of cleaning jokes, but by God, they just write themselves. Wait, where were we going with this?
Freaking and geeking, Joe. What are you freaking on?
Cory, how did you deal with it?
Deal with what?
When Mike moved out.
I was so happy.
Well, Chris and I are empty nesters, and we're not happy about it.
But you've got
Holly
all the
finally
extra
left.
room.
She's leaving home. Not quite. It's kind of like the way Dana left. If we're kind of the safety net, so if we're needed, we're here. I.e., could you fill my tank? Yeah, here's a credit card. Bring me back a donut. But yeah, I wasn't here. I was at work. But Holly came in and cleaned out her room and other than leaving a couple bags of trash, did a fairly decent job of it. I did find my Infinity Gauntlet omnibus, which I pretty much think she's abandoned reading. I did find my extremely big book of Sin City, so I'm hoping to read that eventually, which will be fun. And, of course, a lot of graphic novels. I still got to get my chew in place. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do upstairs. We'll probably the bed was left behind, so we'll probably actually put a frame on it, because Holly was just one of these, I got a mattress, that's all I need.
Omnibus room.
I thought of that, but I'm not quite sure if the house, which was built in 1928, could handle omnibus.
Do what I did with my son's room for a year.
What's that?
Turn it into a ball pit.
Oh, well, yeah, but it's on the second floor. I don't want balls, bopping down all the time. She did leave the bunny behind, though. So I did. Not only did we inherit it from Dana, and now Holly's abandoned it. And the bad thing is Chris will come home and smell it and go, okay, I got to clean the cage, I'm only here 3 days a week, and I can't smell anything. So that was kind of sad. We weren't ready for empty nesters. We are working about it. Of course, some of the things are like, okay, this is the last year. Maybe we'll be able to declare her on our taxes because she may be out of the house, paying rent somewhere else. Yeah, so I told Chris we got to be ready for that. Probably kick up our donations. If I win the lottery, I won't give a fuck. But whatever. The other thing is, we got to really cut back on the food we're eating, because some of the things we'd buy and then they just rot because nobody's eating them, because Holly used to eat them. Well, that's something that. And the other thing that's kind of getting offset, because part of me keeping my diabetes under control is I'm kind of buying more specialized food. You've seen those goofy chocolate shakes where, one shake is an entire meal. What's 25 carbs, which is basically I can do up to 60. So I've been taking to buying those. They're friggin' expensive, though. But what you gonna do, brother?
Make them buy Incarnation Instant Breakfast and milk.
And I actually looked for that stuff and I couldn't find it, at least not where I was looking. So.
Oh, it's near the breakfast cereal.
Besides, I also am trying to cut back on the milk, but that's a different subject. So, and some of the other things too. And I got to tell you, Cory, I on the eBays, I'll be selling my last Deathmate set. And you know why?
Because you hate yourself?
No, because last week I threw the Deathmate joke to you, and you no-sold it. If you're gonna no-soul, we had a presence that hated ongoing continuity jokes. And granted, Oprah on a baked ham was probably a little bit too much. But one thing I could count on is that if I mentioned Deathmate, Cory would follow through with the joke. But no, last week he cruelly no-sold the joke.
I don't remember.
So.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, as if I couldn't, I'm choking, I'm gagging, and you no-sold it. So, fuck you, Strode.
I screw you, Strode. Get it right.
For me, I don't want to go on Angels or Angels motif, So, anyways, no more Deathmate jokes. No more Deathmate. I'm putting the last one. It's actually the regular set, and I do have the Advanced Comics prologue. So, and of course, years ago I sold the gold set. That's probably the only one that's got any value to it. So, it's all on you again, Strode.
Well, I'm used
we're,
to that by now.
we're working our way towards just a boring, predictable podcast.
I
Marching
don't
our way
think you
through.
can say that this week.
No, that's not true. We did some breaking news, which, of course, the thing is, by the time this podcast drops, is old news.
Yeah,
So
but our take on it will be
it kind of
different because it
it kind of
took us in a
hit us.
direction.
Well, and it hit us like a ton
Yeah.
of bricks. Oh, I'm verklempt. What are you freaking on, Strode? If that's your real name, I'd like to see a birth certificate any day now.
Oh, I can bring it next time.
I really don't care, but
No.
whatever.
Archie has announced that the Marvel digests are done.
I wondered about that. I saw today in my email that Discount canceled the digest.
Yes. Archie's announcement wasn't just that they're canceled. It's not only are they canceled, but they're not doing the ones that have been solicited.
That's sales, probably.
Well, it has to be sales because the thing to remember is when you're publishing somebody else's stuff, it costs more than publishing your own stuff. And when I interviewed Stephanie Cofell back in the 50s, when we were young and carefree, she talked about how for the RT Digest they would just have somebody go in the back and grab a bunch of stories. They wouldn't have to pay anybody. They'd pay her to recolor them, and they'd pay the production people. But they didn't have to pay artists or writers or anybody else. So that's why the Archie Digests have been so profitable and so successful. Well, now with the Marvel Digests, they have to pay Marvel. They have to pay Marvel a royalty. So it's not like just going into the inventory and grabbing a bunch of film and slapping it down like, the 1,000-page Archie things. It's not like, okay, grab 1,000 pages worth of film. It's nope, Marvel works with them and they work with Marvel and Marvel gets a cut and you have to sell better for those things to be profitable. And obviously they didn't sell well enough. I think they did the best they could. The stuff they picked was some great stories. A lot of real early Kirby, a lot of classic stories, but also the newer stuff that's done for kids, and always about whatever the movie was. So it's like, oh, the Black Panther. Here's a Black Panther digest. Avengers Infinity War. Here's a Thanos digest. Ant-Man. Here's an Ant-Man digest. So I don't think they really could have done any better. It just wasn't profitable and didn't work. So while I give them props for giving it a try, I'm kind of sad that they won't continue because I really like them. Especially, throw a couple in my bag that I take back and forth to work that's got my computer and all my other stuff in it. I'd throw one of those in my bag. They don't weigh hardly anything, and I can read comics at lunch. But they're gone. They're gone!
So, what I would recommend, if you have them and haven't read them to pieces, keep them safe. Because if you look at some of the DC digests that came out in, that was what, 80s?
Yes.
Some of those are pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And by judging by the way sales are, I don't know of many people that picked up a lot of these. So, again, you heard it here first.
Let's see. Next thing I am freaking on. This was my weekend to work at the group home, and normally that means that I have evenings and afternoons kind of free. Nope, I had to do my annual training, Joe. So I had my MANT training, which always is upsetting because it's not about giant mutant ants. No, it's about how to defuse escalation and build solid relationships and on and on.
A couple of years ago, I was forced to go to BAT training. Now, you're thinking what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
No. We used to have what we call behavior detection officers. The
Yes.
idea being that you could stand in front and just by looking at somebody, tell if they were going to commit a terrorist act, which was basically bullshit. You could flip a frickin' coin and find out. So I was majorly disappointed. I went to the BAT training, did not even get a BAT belt. Oh, was I vocal about that?
But
so I feel your pain about that.
My Saturday was pretty much ruined. I was only home for like 3 hours before I had to turn around and go back in. And then I had to be at work at 6 a.m. Sunday morning. And Joe, I'm going to tell you something I learned. Driving into work, getting up at 4:45, getting my shower, getting everything ready, driving in, stopping at the Speedway. No one on their way to work at 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning looks happy about it. Now, when I go to work today, I stopped in, bought a soda, bought one of those Belvita breakfast biscuit things that's supposedly healthier for you than a donut. Rather the donut.
Yeah, me too.
But a lot of the people in there, they were happy. You know, they were getting their coffee, they were telling jokes to the people with them, they had smiles on their face. Now, 5:30 Sunday morning, everybody has the same expression I have when I wake up to go to work. Do not look at me wrong, because I am not awake and I will not remember beating you to death with my coffee mug. So, there you go. But this weekend, I only have sleep shifts, so I get most of the weekend off, and that's good, because, oh my God, there was a lot of TV this weekend, which we'll talk about in the geeking. Joe, what are you geeking on?
That my wife doesn't like Tim Hortons any more than I do. She discovered that her favorite bagel store, Bruegger's downtown St. Paul, suddenly closed. As she was, you're talking about your coffee craving. And she got there and they weren't there. So she went over to Tim's and nope, no sir. She doesn't like it. TV-wise, actually, I was going to ask you, Cory, what was that? Oh, I can't think of it. Disenchanted, the Matt Groening new series. You said you finished it. What was your end?
It was mediocre.
I'll give you that.
I didn't love it.
I'll give you that. I think a lot of people went in, at least the comments I heard, they were thinking medieval Futurama, which is what I was expecting. Once I got it through my head, okay, this is more a drama with funny parts. I enjoyed it a little bit more. The question is, did you catch the season ender at the very last episode?
Yes, okay. I did.
And I didn't because Roku kicked me out before. The second thing is, did you hear about the Easter egg that occurred when they were showing all the different they were going back in time to show what had happened earlier?
I don't know if I did or not. What was the Easter egg?
They showed from an episode of Futurama Fry, Bender, and the Professor.
Oh.
The one where they went forward in time and ended up coming around to the beginning of time.
Okay.
Which links the two universes together. Which also links them with the Simpsons universe. And now we have another, 7 shades of bacon. So
well, if you watch the Treehouse of Horror, both Futurama and Disenchanted made an appearance on it, as did
fun.
the Orville.
And that was a freaking I didn't record or tape because my didn't record it. So I'm kind of PO'd about that. Oh, well, there's always the DVDs if they come out again. There's also a ton of news because Netflix apparently canceled Iron Fist and Luke Cage. Neither which I have seen, so I whether that's good or bad, I don't know. My hope is that they might do Heroes for Hire. My fear is this may be Netflix disengaging from Netflix Disney properties. So we'll see what that happens. I did catch The Good Place, which we watched because Ted Dawson's in it.
Ted Danson. How far are you?
We went all the way through season 1.
All right. Did you guess the ending?
I did not.
Good.
Which was amazing. And I don't know if I think it so freaked my wife out. I don't know if she wants to watch season 2.
She does. Because unlike season 2 is full of more twists.
All right. I will get her on it because we also are taking a detour because, of course, one of our favorite all-time shows on, and it's going to come with an Ask the Strode, Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Yes, the entire series is on.
What is the first time you saw Monty Python's Flying Circus?
It was the Big Blue Book. I saw the book at the library where my mother was going to college before I saw the show. But I'd heard all about the show, but I couldn't see Monty Python and the Holy Grail because it was rated R, and I was only like 12.
Come on, Ma, everybody's seeing it. No.
But then they started running the series on the local Peoria PBS station, but they did it in a way that made it very hard for me to watch because they showed it on Saturday nights at 10:30. And that was during the first 4 seasons of Saturday Night Live, which those first 4 seasons, I was obsessed with Saturday Night Live. So I would tune into Saturday Night Live. Oh, it's a rerun. I can watch Monty Python. Oh, it's a new show. And it's Steve Martin. Oh, I got to watch it.
That's funny because I have down what was your first Saturday Night Live, and I don't even recall what my first one is. All I know is a lot of things that I thought I saw in reruns, I saw first run.
My first Saturday Night Live was the first episode.
See, I don't recall what my first one is. I do remember seeing Muppets. I remember Lorne Greene asking the Beatles to come down and get together. I remember the following week George Harrison showing up and not getting the $3,000 check.
Sorry, it's just you, so you would only get $750.
And of course, I think my first Saturday Night Live was the infamous, we're talking about Jane Curtin
Ripping her
saying,
shirt open.
Until the ERA passes, we are going to refrain from any oral sex.
Oh, yes.
Until Bill Murray says, well, you know, Jane, that goes both ways. And of course, my mom, the good, typical Catholic woman, was aghast. The first Monty Python I remember was the one where the very timid man played by, I believe, Michael Palin was going through life totally oblivious because he went to the chemist and there was a topless woman behind the counter and he barely noticed. And of course, when he gets to the office, not only is there like feet hanging above him from someone who hanged themselves, but somebody's making out with Carol Cleveland on his desk. And what does he do? He sneaks out a comic book, which then leads to one of those goofy animations that I absolutely loved. For Chris, the first, I think PBS brought back. See, our PBS had Monty Python Friday nights, so it wasn't a problem for me to watch Saturday Night Live or whatever. When they reran them, and this was, let's see, probably about 83 again on PBS, they did them Thursday nights, and I went over, they do 2 at a time, and I basically go, oh, Chris, you got to watch this. You've never seen this. This is hilarious. The first episode was the one with Harold. Who's Harold? He's the flying sheep.
Oh, yeah.
He's what we're all worried about. He's clever sheep. Why don't you get rid of Harold? Should the enormous commercial potential should he succeed? But anyways, so we're watching Monty Python, having a blast. Hip watch. Well, let's see. I went to the dentist, so I got that off my list. I got a cavity. I got to go deal with that this week. It's a small one, but it's there. And of course, my wife's like, well, that's what you get for not going for 2 years. I said, well, I went 10 years and I never had a cavity. It's just one of those dumbass things. It's like I stop eating sweets because of my diabetes and I get a cavity. Anyways, I was going to get a flu shot last week, but I caught the cold from hell. It's now subsiding, so it's now just the snot gurgle from hell. I dropped off at work my voluntary leave form because we get to, if you're part of the federal thing, you can volunteer leave to someone in your same area. Problem is, it's going to take about 6 weeks to process. If you've been watching Hip Watch, you know I'll be under the knife, well, as of this podcast dropping in 4 weeks. So not only will Cory have some outstanding substitute hosts, but by the time the first one hits, I'll be going, oh, fuck, what did I do that for? But and part of me was also, if it's going to take that long, why should I bother? But I talked to the guy. He got it up. Next up is the FLMA. So I get to deal with that. And we all know how good that went the first time when I did it about a year ago to try to get my rheumatoid. So every time I have to take a sick day out, they're not like, Joe, we saw you took a sick day. Are you okay? No, I got rheumatoid arthritis. Reading wise, I'm back in Korea again. I picked up a book, Korea, Where the American Century Began by Michael Pembroke. And this one talks pretty much, it's a pretty absorbing account of it's one of the world's most troubling spots, Korea, but also deals with its ancient past, troubled history, why, there's a lot of stupidity and arrogance on the Americans' half. The big one, of course, was to think that China, after being invaded through Korea, now Korea has like two major areas that they go through. The Japanese did it in order to invade Korea, or they went through Korea and then they went into Japan. And we all know into China. We all know how well the Japanese treated the Chinese during World War II. So that's fresh in their mind. So, not only, I don't know, it's all convoluted, but it goes forward. I mean, Iran, Honduras, Argentina, it just goes on and on and on. I strongly fear if the United States falls or is changed, our kids are going to look back on this the way we look upon the British Empire. Like, oh my God, what the fuck was America doing in the 20th century after World War II? That said, this also brings up a lot of good points. If you really have no idea what Korea is, except for MASH, this is a good book to go with because it fairly even-handedly covers the conflict and the origins, why some of these countries like China, Korea have a much longer historical view than we do. It covers some of the themes I talked about in Command and Control, where it's just some of the arrogance of the military. Amazing we didn't have a nuclear accident or war by now. Well, this tells you pretty much why we had a war in Korea, why we had a war in Vietnam. So again, I'm fascinated by history. I mean, I don't want to make this a real downer, but it's a interesting book. And if you're just looking for a concise book, it's one of the better ones I read. Considering in the 80s when I did a term paper on why did China invade during the Korean War, I shouldn't say, attack, and nobody really knew. Well, guess what? We know now because some of the papers have been declassified and we're closer to the truth. Lest you think all I'm doing is trying to shove history down your throats. Yes, I understand you were yawning at school. You're probably yawning now. I read some comic books.
Oh, comics?
I know. What the hell's wrong with me?
Thank goodness.
I don't remember ordering it, but I know I did. Cover, Brian, Michael Bendis, and Mack, and David Mack, and just amazing book. First of all, I absolutely love David Mack's art. If I had the funds, I would just buy comic covers with his artwork. But this is actually fun because they're doing it together. Not quite sure where the story was going, which is fine. It was fun. It has a good hook towards the end. And again, I said I like the covers. Well, at the back, they're doing some of his recent DC covers, all watercolors. So you get Superman 1 variant cover, the Sandman Universe variant cover, and the Batman 50 variant cover that David Mack did. Then I remembered that, yes, I do have the first two books of Sandman Universe, so I picked up The Dreaming #1. And again, these are books I'm not quite sure if I'm going to stay with. After reading The Dreaming, though, I will definitely be staying with this one because it's in the universe that I'm familiar with. It's got characters that I like. We're revisiting old friends. And there's some major league stuff going on that nobody seems to know why or what's going on. There's a new house that appeared, the House of Whispers. This one was a little more difficult going into. Again, didn't know what was going on. By the time you got to the last page, it's like, oh, okay, I think I'm hooked. We'll see where it goes. I don't know if these are better read as books or whatever, but I'm going to be buying the whole run as series as they come out. I'm being a little vague because they're just out on the newsstand, and just like with The Good Place, I don't want to give away any of the endings because, for most of these, they were kind of like, okay, trudge, and then you get to the ending and you're like, whoa, all right, I'll hang around for a while. That's pretty much it. Cory, what are you geeking on?
Joe,
Yes.
did you get that thing I sent you? Did
No.
you get the thing that I sent you?
Never.
Do you know what that's from?
Birdman.
Guess what's
Attorney?
back on Adult Swim?
No.
Unannounced. They just, here you go, here's a new episode of Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. I love when Adult Swim does this shit. Just all of a sudden, because they rerun it a couple times, and I set the DVR, and one Tuesday, I sat down, I got some TV time. Oh, they must have rerun another Harvey Birdman. Nope, it's new. Yeah, I'm very happy that show's back, and it still makes me laugh pretty hard. Other TV wise, let's see, The Good Place had one of their best episodes ever, which is saying a lot. I didn't have much TV time this weekend, but next weekend I do. So I'm what, about a month and a half behind on WWE, about 3 months behind on Ring of Honor, and so TV party next weekend. I read a bunch of really cool comics though. The first comic I read that I could not have loved more, and I didn't expect it to be so good, was a comic from Image. The first issue just came out, called Dead Rabbit. Written by Gary Duggan, drawn by Joel McCray, who did Hitman. It is the story of a thief who in the 90s stole millions of dollars and then vanished. Well, now he's back, and things are different. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because this book constantly surprised me. And I like when a comic surprises me. As I read it, I had no idea where they were going. I really like the lead character, and I like the world that he's in. I'm excited about where it's going to go. And John McCrae's art is better than it's been ever. I like it more than I like his Hitman art. Just absolutely a beautiful looking book. I am now up to the 4th issue of Death of the Inhumans, and it was phenomenal as well. Donny Cates, who just did the Thanos series and will be taking over Guardians of the Galaxy, is doing this 5-part miniseries. Again, I don't want to tell you anything other than the fact that in this issue, they drop a hint that Beta Ray Bill and Lockjaw have had hundreds of adventures together that we know nothing about. And just based on the few panels they showed, I want that book. I want that book so much. I did read the Dynamite Battlestar Galactica Classic #0. And I have yet to be impressed by any of the Battlestar Galactica comics. Most of them have either been poorly done or just rehashes of what has gone in the past. This one actually was interesting. It was more than just, oh, look, it's more Cylons we have to run away from and fight. And this actually sets up an interesting story and has the fleet run into aliens other than the Cylons. Now, my memories of the original series are kind of fuzzy. Joe, did they ever run across any other alien civilizations in the original series?
Yeah, well, in the first episode, we saw some different races. The one that was working with the Cylons. And then they ran across a group of humans that were not related to the colonies. That was, I think, when we got to see Ray Bolger as a robot.
Yeah, but we never really got...
And Randy Mantooth, the man, the myth, the tooth. He got to be there, too.
But we never really got them running across any truly alien races.
No, not really. I mean, the Count Ibis was allegedly alien, and of course the big light people were aliens, but not quite.
So I really like the premise, and I like the fact that it's not just the same story over and over and over and over and over again. And then the last comic that I read that I really liked was The Superior Octopus #1. This is part of the kickoff to Spider-Geddon, and actually shows the beginning of Spider-Geddon. And I won't spoil it any more than Dr. Octopus is trying to go legit. Now that he has a new cloned body, he's trying to go legit and be an actual superhero out in San Francisco. And if you liked the Superior Spider-Man stuff, this takes it a little farther. Sets everything up for what's going to be coming, and really good first issue, and got me excited about Spider-Geddon, whereas the miniseries Edge of Spider-Geddon, none of the characters that they showed really leapt out at me. It's all, okay, it's another version of Spider-Man. Yeah, it's another version of Spider-Man. And the last comic I am geeking on, the new What If one-shots have come out. Joe, did you see who wrote What If Flash Thompson became Spider-Man?
I remember that in What If a long time ago.
No, the new version. Did you see who
No,
wrote it?
I didn't read those.
You may want to pick up this one because it's written by Gary Conway.
Ooh.
And if nothing else, Gary Conway knows his Spider-Man history, so he takes events that happened and shows how they would have been different with Flash Thompson involved, up to the Master Planner story. So, an excellent What If. I also picked up the X-Men What If, and I could only make it about 5 pages in before I went, I don't know what the hell's going on in this story, and I just don't care. So, there you go. There's comics that I'm geeking on. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books and pro wrestling and breaking news for an hour and a half.
You got a lot of nerve.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. So said V and V for Vendetta. Hit my music.